Good evening, all. Welcome back. We are trying to come back from technical difficulties. If you joined us last week, seen we had some internet issues. We got those resolved after about 6 days. They finally got a truck out, and now we are battling some audio issues, but hopefully we're about to solve them shortly. Mhm. Bear with us just a few moments. Hopefully, we can get Allie's audio working. I almost thought I heard something from you, Allie. Turn this off, focus. All the technical difficulties. There, still no audio. Wait, I can hear you. Yes, I can. You're just really quiet.
I could be louder.
No, you don't need to yell. I'm gonna. Yay! Technology
I
issues fixed.
eventually this is my laptop I don't use to travel.
Ah, fair enough.
I have to take about an hour to and I
Oh, geez.
like I will fix this later.
Well, I can hear you. And I appreciate your effort to getting it to hear you. I would also like to note that our wall colors are oddly close to the same, or at least it looks the same in the picture.
um
But
yes, I have damage. Nothing in here dead on the
there we go. All right. Well, now that we got audio, we'll start to get into it. So, thank you for bearing with us. Um, I'm Dustin Roficionado. This is the Dominance Dialogue. Tonight we have Ali Sin on, and we are going to be discussing Buddhism in BDSM, mindfulness, and masochism. So, Ali, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and potentially your spiritual journey or BDSM journey?
get them know them better.
Hey, wait, Ali, 1 second. It Max just sent me a message saying that they can't hear you. I can hear you. I can see the audio is coming through. Don't know. Technology seems
That's
to
not
be. No, it's not your fault. None of this has been your fault. Um, 1 second. Let's see if we can refresh this. All right. Um, okay, now let's see if we can get the audio out. Max, can you confirm if you can hear Allie now?
Very long.
I know. You came all this way, ripped out ripped out a microphone. All right, so Max says he still can't hear you. Hmm. Why? We just tested this yesterday. In there, I have audio coming from you. I can hear you. Now I can't hear you. Now I can hear you. All right, now we can hear you. Now,
X.
now I think maybe you want to try telling your story and see if Max can hear you.
Start out with Max. Can you hear me?
Nope, still nope. Dang,
I'm not gonna
it's
go until like I'm not gonna start the story and then like
yeah. It says that you're fading in and out. He's saying. I appreciate your personality so much, Allie. That's proper. Max and I literally just tested this yesterday, did a recording, did all of the stuff because last week I had internet issues, so we couldn't get anything. And now he's saying that whenever you speak, you get a few words and then it fades to silent, stays there, and then sometimes it comes back. Oh yeah, no, that's not you. I hear you fine. The only thing I can think of at this point would be to try to rejoin the room since you put that new web camera on and see if that fixes it. I have no idea. I might have to start doing all of these interviews in person. I might just have to start flying around and seeing everybody.
turn.
All right, 1 second. We're gonna see if we get her to rejoin, if we can get a stable audio connection from her. No, I thought I was starting to get into a rhythm of doing well with things. Um, I felt that most of the podcasts were starting to like there's like an upwards trajectory. And then well, I don't know, Dr. Bob and the Goddess, that was a challenging one to try to mix three audio streams, and that was above me apparently. Um, but nonetheless, like last week it was internet issues while outside of my control, and now we don't know what the issue is this time. So hopefully we can resolve it. Otherwise, maybe the podcast gods are telling me I need to hire an audio engineer or something. Any volunteers? I mean, I don't I can share Allie. I I appreciate Allie and her thoughts, and I'm sure a lot of the people here will as well. So I assure you, I'm not trying to be stingy. At least she joins back. Maybe she's trying to restart her computer. I mean, that is like the number one fix for technology, it seems. There we go. She's joined back in. I cannot hear her. Can you hear me? Man. I know you can hear me. It's easy to fix my issues on my end sometimes, sort of. Now, Allie's video should be pulled in. Get her video working. Audio. I know something's different this time because when you came into the room, um, normally you have this little speaker on your video, and it allows me to click it and unmute you. And now it still doesn't. It doesn't even let me click it and unmute you. You did something new. We're so close. Um, this makes my head hurt. Um, my sound's fine. Had sound from her, just wasn't stable. What did we do last time? Like you plugged in that new webcam and it just worked. Now it just doesn't work. It's funny because I can see you and everybody can see you, but nobody can hear you. So like it's like the old Japanese movies or whatever, where the lips aren't syncing up with the words. Oh, well, this is not how this podcast and stuff's supposed to go. It's supposed to be easy, I thought. Mhm. Uh, like I said, the difference I think is uh, I've never seen it where it's been like that. Well, I think that did you click anything different when you joined the room? No. Hmm. And when you got your audio to work previously, all you did was change over the web camera? Well, I hate to do it again, but I can't get your audio working, then we can't exactly have an interview. Oh, wait. Hey, 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 what'd you
Hey,
do? You fixed it.
yeah.
What'd you do? I gotta know whatever, because I can hear you great, and
I
I
don't
can
know. I've
see
been holding this over your head for a while. I was looking at stuff and then I closed that window and it popped up with let him do it. And I said, yeah, sure, click.
so you
But
just
that was
needed to get
behind the window I was looking at.
oh, so you just needed to give me control, like, to
Oh, fuck no. No, never, ever. We have stopped doing that shit.
okay, well, I'm getting nervous, I'm starting to sweat here, like, I had to cancel last week's podcast because of internet, and, like,
Oh, but we
now
first got to ask Max, can you hear me?
I believe, um I believe he can.
Okay,
So,
God knows that. He's the one to ask.
yes. Yes. I sincerely apologize for all the technical difficulties. I'm actually gonna make a note that inside of my email that goes out to my guests is that you have to consent to giving me control of your audio for the
We can
podcast.
negotiate that. We will negotiate that.
Okay, okay, okay. Um, okay. Well, thank you. Ah, what a day.
Yeah, it's,
Okay, so let's get right into it. You guys have been patient enough. I'm sure you guys
I
want to
know.
hear a little bit about Allie and her story. So once again, this is Ali Sin. Tonight we're discussing Buddhism inside of BDSM, mindfulness, and masochism. Ali, can you give us a little bit about your story, please?
I'll stick with the kinky side of the story. I've been in the scene about 25 years. I started online, which is what most people start with. And I just kept on talking to different people to see where I'm trying to figure out what I am or what everything is. So I went and I would always talk to people and I figure out what their spirituality, where they live, try to learn something about them. And when I was doing that, one of the guys that I started talking to, a dominant that lived nearby, he was Buddhist. So I'm like, well, what's this Buddhism thing? And there's a lot of religions I looked up and I'm like, no, not happening. But I looked at the Buddhism and it was like, it's like when you go into the first kink room and you're like, I'm home. Well, this one is learning about Buddhism. And I'm like, this works for me. This absolutely works for me. And I loved it. So I asked him what I should read, to learn more. And he told me a couple books. And then I went to a retreat with Lama Surya Das. He's written a whole bunch of books and they're on the bestseller list. And at the end, I said, well, this is a great retreat. What do I do when I go home? And he's the one that told me about a Sangha that is about an hour away from me. And so I connected with those people. And that's how my Buddhism, I'm still with them. I lead the local discussion groups, a book study group, tons of stuff. It's changed my life, I think, by being able to control my mind and how I think on a day by day basis, and how I decide what I'm going to not decide so much how I live my life. Since I told you that my son died 2 years ago, and since then I've dedicated my life, a lot of it, to helping others, and it could be something as small as smiling at somebody at the grocery store, or somebody needs help, or somebody needs a little money, I donate to them, and just things like that. And at the end of every day, I dedicate this good merit to my son who died and to all the other ones we lost. It's not like it's kind of hard to explain because we believe in reincarnation. So there's not a heaven or hell to us, sort of. And so I just dedicate it to other people, and it makes my life. It gives me a passion, and I enjoy doing it. And the kink side is, I kept on going with that, and now I got with one guy who's a gay. I am the uh, girl of a gay male top, so that's really fun. And he was the one that got me into going to conventions and retreats and camps. So now through him, I volunteered with those people. Now he's kind of like not doing anything. So I'm like on staff to Camp Crucible and the Crucible. And yeah, if you're with somebody, you're going to be dragged into it. But I really love it. That's that's what I do. I
Sounds
test
like
all the papers.
it sounds like it's consumed your life in many ways.
Yes, I rescue dogs. That's a big part of my life. A friend of mine, she teaches on her business is teaching online cookie decorating classes. So to help her and to help her make money, I do 3D. I have, okay, 9 3D printers. It
So proud of
maybe
you.
I'm in the beginning. There's 9 and a resin. I haven't gotten to that one yet. We won't even go into the CNC wood carving machine in my barn. But see, I help her, and everybody's like, "Well, why do you do that? Because you're not being paid." I said, "Okay, you help her. That makes her really happy. She's able to make an income. She supports her family, takes care of her mother, and she teaches online classes. Those online classes teach other people. They're really happy. They learned how to decorate this one cookie. They go home and they make cookies for people. It makes all this, so it's like exponential. And all these people are so happy because I printed some 3D cookie cutters for her. And
So
that's what I do.
it's like a pay it forward mentality then.
It's very much, I look to see where I can help people. If it's I'm going away soon, so I'm like, the neighbor's daughter needs a job. She hasn't found one yet, so I talked to her about helping with my, babysitting my dogs. I was actually walking down the baking aisle at Walmart, and this guy is just staring at all the flour, and he looks at me and says, "Can you help me?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm there." He's like, "I'm looking for cake flour," and I'm so confused. I'm like, so I go into this whole thing, here I do a lot of baking and cookies, this whole thing trying to explain to him what cake flour is and all this other stuff. And I said, "This is what you want. This is the best they got right here." And he was so happy. But that little 5 minutes, you just give so little, make somebody's day.
I think like that the karma, I believe, is a lot of the way it's framed in Buddhist philosophies, is that, you kind of get what you give, you know, and more so
Hmm.
like it kind of stacks on top of each other. And I appreciate how you kind of brought that out, that you bring a little bit of happiness to this person, and then this person might bring a happiness to one or two other
Hmm.
people, and it just essentially it just grows and it stretches out.
Yeah,
um
it's karma, it's cause and effect. I'm on 2 support groups for suicide, and one's parents were, and I spend a lot of time going through the posts and trying to help these people. Sometimes it helps them, sometimes it doesn't, but it may plant a seed for later. I don't know.
Sure.
But it's anytime I can try to help somebody or just open their minds a little bit. And sometimes telling them that you have to want to change does not, it's not received as great as I hope.
Let's see if we can open some people's minds tonight with tonight's topic, because it's an interesting one. I mean, it's not something that I've necessarily thought that I would be part of the discussion. I've never even really heard of someone bringing much spirituality inside of BDSM or the BDSM communities, but part of the goal with this show is to bring like the reality to us, and we are
Mm.
humans and there's many facets to us, and the only facet isn't the fun stuff that happens behind the bedroom door, right? um and is the bedroom door closed?
Oh, well, I'm in my bedroom, so honey. Mhm.
Fair enough. Well, I'm in my studio. All
It's
professional like. But so let's dive into the topic, and the first question that I posed for you was, in your opinion, and all of this is specifically going to be your opinion, right? What are some of the similarities and the differences between Buddhism and BDSM in terms of their approaches to mindfulness, presence, and my
Mm.
favorite one, suffering?
Oh, those are all good ones. Mindfulness, I was working with a Dom once at camp, and he was trying to mind fuck me. It was adorable. But he kept on trying to say the different things he was going to do to me. That night that we were preparing a scene, and I'm like, every time he changed, he got worse and worse and worse. I'm like, okay. And next time he said, I'm going to do this to you. I was like, okay. He's like, I can't mind fuck you. I was like, is me saying no, or is anything going to change your mind on what you're going to do? Anything I do, or he's like, well, no. I said, then why should I react to you?
Mm,
So, see,
hmm,
that's saying in the now,
mm,
and um, that's I do that a lot. That whatever, I don't really care what you say you're going to do. I'm always in the now. I'm not thinking ahead of what could be or what was. You just stay in the now, and you could do fine. Um, it's to me different because if you go back to Buddhism, the first thing we are taught is to question everything. So that kind of can be a little bit of an issue with the scene because it means I can't be with somebody that says my word or the high, or go away. My way or the highway, that's it. Um, I will question everything. That's why I never say I am a slave. I say I am a sub. And even when I'm following orders, in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking, is this okay? What am I doing? Can they take, and really to me, it's you're equals. And I'm one part, I can't force him to take power, and he can't force me to give it up. So we are on an even plane. The power exchange of, he's in control, but I still am going to always, it's in my nature. I am going to, and Buddhists, I mean, contemplate like you would not believe. We're constantly, constantly thinking. And to stop that, they teach you to meditate. So you stop thinking. And that's kind of fun. I suck at it. I'll tell you right now, I suck at meditation. Sitting there and not thinking is just not my jam. Not going to do it. But where were we? Things. It's we're different, and it also depends on the person. I am extremely devout Buddhist. And there's other people I know that say, "Yeah, oh yeah, I'm Buddhist," and yeah, they like it, but are they really into it as strong as I am? Or not saying I'm better or anything. It's just no, theirs is a more lower. They don't do that much with it. So I had one time somebody decided that they wanted to do a scene of beating the Jesus into me with Bibles,
Oh
not
my.
negotiating,
Oh
not
wow.
negotiating. I negotiated a whip scene. Of course, I'd do a whip scene. Whips never. They changed it, and yeah, it lasted 5 minutes, and never played with them again. And it's like you can't. People's spirituality is so personal to that person, and and that's why it's very hard for me to play because I think a little bit. I consider I think differently than most. That I'm not going to just give you my submission. I will always consider things, and usually I don't follow directions well. I like to enjoy my scene, so that kind of is fun. Um, but if you if you always are thinking about what's going on, it does get tiring at times. But also, I think it prevents a lot of problems if you and that if you are already in a established relationship. If I'm in an established relationship, I wouldn't worry that hard. If I'm with somebody new, oh yes, we're contemplating, judging everything. What was the rest of that? I need to
It
have
was a
written it.
long one. I probably could have broke it up. But so here's the one that I really want to know is what are the similarities and differences between Buddhism and BDSM specific to suffering?
Um, oh, suffering is. Oh, the Buddhists are really good into suffering. Oh my God, they just everything is suffering. So they break it down into three ways to suffer. You can have something there and you're grasping at it and you can't get it. So that suffering is you're trying to grasp it. Then there's the version, like you don't want it and you want to go some no. So you're trying to get away from it. And the third suffering is total ignorance. You just don't really care. So it can be because I think they think of it differently than the normal person with BDSM. That you want to reduce your grasping and your aversion. So that's why you stay in the now. And if you do that, there's less suffering. So I, at one point, was able to block all the pain in scenes. That's really fun. And so the suffering, I'm trying to think of some way to explain it. Um, I think Buddhists can control the suffering a little bit better because they dive so much into understanding it. But a lot of times, if you stay in the now with the suffering, I guess like in a scene with pain, I guess is what the suffering you're talking about. And I understand the pain, and I'm not running from the pain, and I'm not running to the pain or away from it. It just is.
Mm.
So it's not going to affect me as much. And I think it goes more into turning off those ways of reacting to the suffering, that you kind of go into like a trance, which is what I do. I'm not sure if others, because I don't really know anybody else into Buddhism in the scene, but when I was playing, I would go into almost like a meditative, deep trance during a scene.
You just said you weren't good at meditating.
I During a scene is fun.
not
I'm
conventional
not a
Buddhist.
Christian saying, "I'm not gonna think, I'm not gonna follow that. Oh my God, what are we doing tomorrow? Okay, oh, the dogs have gotta go out soon." Yeah, yeah, I need to, and I even wrote down because I was watching, one of the discussion shows this morning, and the guy was actually talking about the benefits of meditation, and I'm like, and I was listening to him like, "Oh, yeah, I really should. I should start this up." And I just like, it's one of my versions, right there. It's like, it annoys me. And I'm like, okay, if we go with this, we'll do it my way. And I can get, I'm really terrible accepting people telling me how to do things. I really suck at it. It's like, just
Weird.
tell me what needs to be done. I'll do it my way. Go away. But yeah, the suffering, we, we dive so much into how we feel, how we think, the senses, and everything, and perspective. Like, you can see it one way, and then of course I am, I'm the one that's like, I understand that, but, and I have to throw it in a different way that they may not have thought of. But the suffering, um, so if you can, because we think so much, we can control it, I think, better. Or I feel I can control it better. And if like, if you're not running for it or running to it, you're just being in the moment and letting it happen around you, then I think it doesn't affect you as much.
Well, it sounds like, like from an outsider kind of looking in, like I'm somewhat familiar with Buddhism, but I wouldn't say that I'm a Buddhist. Um, is that according to your practices, that how you have framed suffering, you have the like three levels or three tiers of suffering, and that's I was sitting there like just wrapping my head around it, and I actually took a little snip to go back and reflect on those three levels because a lot of suffering stems from that. At least, it,
Yeah. Well, it
it just
starts out with, the suffering is they start out with ignorance. And you can't be a Buddhist unless you really like to make lists, because they have lists everywhere. That's all they are, is list people. Well, it was a verbal religion for hundreds and centuries. So they list made it easier to be able to remember. So they start out with ignorance, then they break it down to, okay, we're going to keep ignorance, but we're also going to divide it to grasping and aversion. They're not levels, they're all the same.
okay.
Is you only have three ways to react to something. You can grasp at it, you can try to get away from it, or you can have no reaction. That's the only three.
So I think I may have like connected a dot, or maybe I didn't. That's like something I like to do. I don't know if that's a Buddhist thing or not. But it sounds like some of this conversation has already encouraged and reinforced various Buddhist principles or practices, right? So you're talking
Mhm.
about meditation and you say you struggle
Right.
with it, right? But it seems like you're pretty good with identifying suffering, right? And it sounds like you're pretty
Yeah.
good at what's that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's all we talk about is like suffering, because
And then oh, to
it's
connect the
the
last thought, you're
Buddhism is getting rid of your suffering, and they have all different ways, and they explain it different ways all over the place,
well,
because
what I'm
we
getting
don't
at
have
is
an
I think that since you have something that's a physical action that's happening to you
yeah.
that would normally be perceived as suffering, but you as a practicing Buddhist don't perceive it as suffering because it doesn't meet your definition of types of suffering. But what it does is encourage you to be mindful and present, and
Hmm.
then in a roundabout way, reach that meditative state or that trance-like state.
Yes, because if you're not mindful, well, you get mindfulness and awareness of the mental goings on. If you're not both of those, you'll never be able to do it because you have to be aware of what your mind's thinking, which is also mindfulness. Yeah, they practice, they study this for years, honey, years, just mindfulness. And you have to be aware what's going on. And you have to, and it's, I just separate the pain. I found as a child, I could just turn it off. It's not a big, I picture just a light switch and I'm like, okay, I don't want this pain. Click.
There.
Yeah. So
And now,
it's,
is it now this is like a deep question and maybe we shouldn't prod at it too much, but is that simply for like physical pain or is that across the board for maybe like mental anguish or mental pain, mental suffering?
I think they're different. They're different because the mental can be changed.
Mm.
And that's what I help. Like I told you, the suicide support groups, I help them a lot. And they're all like, oh, I do is I'm like, okay, I can explain how to change. You may not like it, read it, whatever, and go away. But it's like, first you have to um, label what you want to change mentally. Like, I don't want to go down the evil rabbit hole. Okay, you have to want to change. Then you have to be aware when this bad mental thing starts. And then you have to have come up with ways to stop your mind from going down that rabbit hole. And that way you can use your tools. So you're creating a mental gap or a stop so you can then, because you made the decision to change, it gives your mind the ability to go a different track. So that's the mental, and that's a lot easier. If you're physically suffering, like, consensual suffering, um, it's a little different because somebody does a cutting scene on you, you just can't really say, no, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna stop my mind and I'm gonna go a different way on this. It's like, no, somebody just cut your skin. That's good. That's not gonna, you can't think this thing away. But you can accept the feelings and the emotions it creates, and you don't fight it. And I think that's a way, a lot of suffering is fighting all these feelings. And the people, if you just like let it flow over you. Now, if you a woman and you have kids, they always, this is part of the childbirth thing, and they're like, don't fight it, just let it flow over you. And that helps with it does, believe it or not, for a
Sure.
while. But is if you just allow the feelings to go through you without grasping or running away from them, that's the grasping and aversion, it won't hurt as much.
Mm.
And I describe this as, you have this stream and there's a rock, you're the rock in the middle of the stream. And all these feelings and emotions and everything is the water coming at you. And you just let it go past you. You're the rock. You're not going to interact with it. You're not going to do anything. You're just going to let it go. You may see it. That's no problem. But you don't act on it. And that's one of the hardest things. That kind of gets the mental going with the physical. Yes. There's no, like you said, there's no easy answer to anything. There's
I know
nothing.
that makes me think of many things, but we won't dive into my stories. We'll get to stay on track with the questions, especially since we were a little late to start. So the next question I have for you is, what are some of the benefits and the challenges of practicing BDSM in mindful and ethical ways?
Well, trying to marry the BDSM with the Buddhism, I
Mhm.
guess. Um, I've become a lot pickier about who I play with. Like I just stopped playing. I just haven't gotten. I haven't found somebody that can deal with the way I think. And so instead, it's not like I've gone away from. Obviously, I haven't gone away from the scene. I still love it, but I interact differently with the scene. On staff, and the most fun I have at camp is I find somebody that wants to play a certain way. It's like, I really want to do this. And I'm thinking, let me see. You need to talk to so and so. Come here, come here. And I set up scenes for them. I'm
So
also an
you're like
instigator, but we won't go there.
a kinky cupid.
Yes. Oh my God. I have so much fun doing that, of setting people up, getting them to interact with somebody else or a newbie, coming in. And see that most people think that BDSM is, pain and that's it. But no, it's about interrelations with other people and how we react to other people and getting our needs fulfilled. And, I this being a sub doesn't mean I have to sing. I'm a service sub for the most part, and helping others and doing stuff for them fulfills that in me. And I prefer to do it. I love the silent service where I do things for people and they never know. And that I get such a high out of that. Doesn't always work, but I try. But it's you need to know the people. And the worst part is the guy that introduced me, Master Joe. He died 6 years ago, I think. So I I lost that part. That he was like the only one I ever knew that was in the scene and was a Buddhist. And he was on the other side, so I can hear it from what he's thinking.
Well, maybe you'll have to make like a. I'm sure there isn't a Buddhist pet life group or anything like that.
There is. I really haven't done much with it because my normal Buddhism is just so busy with. I mean, they have retreats after retreat after retreat. These huge ass books, lectures. Um, there's just a lot going on with that, and yes, I maybe should be dealing, going into those groups and seeing. I don't think they're that active, but I can look at them, and
Might
they
be worth
probably.
it.
Yeah, it's just right now. Well, now it's like I've been living alone for the first time and got my entire life for 2 years now. So it's I'm getting used to that, and I found out that I I started letting the dogs get into the bed with me, and I'm like, there's absolutely no reason to date anybody. I got a warm body next to me.
Fair
They
enough.
still clear the blankets and everything, but I'm like, they're really easy to deal with.
Yeah. 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 Well, I mean, companionship is companionship, and they can't talk back. So
They can't. They will. And my life is just so busy with them, and but it's that, like I said, is taking care of them is part of my Buddhism. It's my and it's also my service. I'm big into service. My service, as a service sub, doesn't have to be just in the scene. My service can be anything and still be BDSM and Buddhism.
and that kind of leads us right into that next question, is where I was going to ask, how do you incorporate your Buddhist principles and practices into BDSM?
Um, I think it's back to we're always Buddhism is very big into helping others. That's it's a huge part and of is the right speech and the right um mindfulness and everything like that is you're really wanting to help others get through life better. So with the Buddhism, I am fine with. Now, you just want Buddhism in my life, or is it Buddhism and BDSM?
Your
Just
life.
keep talking.
Yeah. This is your story.
Oh, my story. Oh, honey, you have no idea. Oh my God. I just like doing things for others, and I come up with different ways to do things. Like my neighbor, I I don't know. He said something about the CNC machine, so I bought one. The reason I have 3D printers, I only bought because this cookie lady said that she had had one in a box for over a year and she was scared to death to get it out of the box. And I'm like, really? So I went and found out what kind she had. I found a used one locally, bought it so I could figure out how to use it to help her get it out of the box.
Oh, okay.
So then I got another one. I'm not really sure why. And then she's like, can you make cookie cutters? And I'm like, give me 5 minutes. Yes, I will. So I figured out how to make cookie cutters and I started making them for her. And then she started putting them into these kits that she had. Then she's like, well, here, let me just give you mine. I'm like, well, that didn't work out, did it? Oops. So now I'm
So
up to three printers and they bred.
yeah, yeah. Well, it
They
sounds like
bred.
service is just a big part of your life.
It's I teach dog classes and she doesn't pay me for it because she had a young puppy and she wanted to, you can't teach your dog and teach a class. So it doesn't work. So she asked me if I would teach the novice rally and I'm like, sure. And it's been years. I teach the novice rally still. I just did it tonight. I'm on Camp Crucible, and then we go to the dog classes. I have 3 dog camps that I volunteer with. There's a lot of volunteering. There is um, a wild bird sanctuary about 20 minutes from me. They have hawks, they have eagles, tons of parrots. Oh my God, I'm in heaven in there. And I started volunteering with them. And I love taking photos. So I started volunteering for the animal shelter to take pictures, nice pictures of their animals so they get adopted. It's anything to be a service.
Mm.
And that's what makes me happy.
Well, it sounds like you're overflowing with happiness. So,
Um, if you're saying I have too much going on in my days, yes.
well, and you seem ever since I've met you, you've always seemed pretty full of joy, right?
For the most part, I have now certain times of the year that are bad.
Mhm.
But other than that, I get over it, and that's back with I wanted to change my how I think because there's so many when they have a trend. I was reading somewhere, and I love this saying if I get it right. Um, Tragedy isn't something bad that happens in your life because it's life is hard. Things will happen. The real tragedy is when you don't get up. When you don't get up when something bad happens, that's the real tragedy.
Well, I'll go ahead and butcher one of my own. Um,
You butchered that one.
so it's you can be happy for good reasons or you can be happy for bad reasons. Happiness is a choice,
Yes. All
right?
thoughts choice. Mhm.
Yep. And it doesn't something that's been really big for me is that no one thing defines me. That I am not happy. I am Dustin. Dustin has happiness, he has sadness, he has a lot in him, but no one thing is me. I am not upset. I'm not anything. I am
Yeah.
Dustin, right?
And when you go back down to it in the very basics of feelings and emotions like that is we label them as good, bad,
Okay.
sad. They really aren't. They're just
They're
feelings.
value neutral.
And they have absolutely no value. We give them a label and that's it. And that
Absolutely.
goes back, that's the Buddhism.
So this is a good question. I actually this is may be one of the ones I've been waiting for. So how does BDSM help you explore and transcend your boundaries, desires, and attachments?
Desires and attachments, I think that's still the grasping and the aversion. So that, and the boundaries, if you give, I didn't really have that many boundaries except for, yeah, of course, we always have the hard limits. You know, there's certain things I'm like, no, we're not doing that. But other than that, I'm willing to explore a lot of things, but I'm also willing to say, no, we're not doing that. So that's why I keep on saying I'm more of a like a sub than a slave. But it's the grasping and aversion is just the big things, and all of it goes back to your mindfulness that you are aware of what's going on, and then and then you get to go into all those feelings during a scene aren't real because they're in your brain and you're the one that labels them. So if you get a cut or something, you have labeled it good or bad,
Mm.
and it's just a feeling, and it becomes you can make it into like a nothing. It's you doing it,
Well,
if that makes sense.
absolutely. It's like the frame of mind, or like an analogy I've used prior is like the genre, because that's always I don't remember where I picked that up from, to be honest. Um, it actually may have been Jay Wiseman, SM 101. Don't quote me, but was like, what is the genre of your example? Was a cut. Is it a horror or is it a comedy? I mean, it might
Yeah.
be hard to fathom some scenes being one thing or the other. At the end of the day, like that's a big beauty of what we do is we get to define the boundaries of the scene, and more so the intention of the scene, right?
Hmm.
And that I think helps dictate the feelings that um are manifested in that scene, or at least to some level. I mean, something that I've talked about often, especially when you brought up mind fucks. Excuse me. And whenever I think about like mind fucks or like consensual interrogation or any of this mental play, I always think about how it is most important to focus on the person, not the process. What is the emotional state that you're trying to achieve, not how you're going to
Yeah.
get there, right? And the silly example I have is I throw myself right under the bus. Is some years ago, I had this very elaborate consensual, big consensual word here, kidnapping scene planned. And I
Mm.
borrowed a friend's vehicle. And, that was the add to it. Then my partner wasn't going to know, all the things, right? And I had this very elaborate process established and exactly how it was going to go. Allie, you know me a little bit. I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4. Right?
Yeah. Check. Check.
Yep.
Check.
And when I went to put her into the trunk of my car, I didn't think to see if he cleaned out the trunk of his car, and there was no way we were getting a human in that trunk, let alone a human that I cared deeply about. And to be honest, no pun intended, it put the brakes on everything for me. It ruined everything was ruined for me for that moment because that process because I was so focused on the process of, like, the living out the movie and, like or however, and I wasn't so much focused on that emotional state, right? If it was really like the movies or whatever it was, you just put her in the backseat of the car or something, who knows? But for me and my brain, it just the
Yeah.
process broke, then the person and the feeling that I was trying to get, like, I didn't even know what I was trying to get. So but that's a little
So in other words, you're
practice.
saying you were grasping at a certain vision, unwilling to let it go, and as soon as you could not grasp it, your suffering started, and it all went to shit in a handbag.
Pretty much, pretty much.
And instead of saying, "Well, fuck, that didn't work," wrapping something around her eyes and ears and some zip
Yeah,
ties and throw it in the back seat and throw a blanket over. Hey, we got it. Let's go.
yeah, 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 no,
As
and
yeah,
that
you can. Yeah, that's you got to be willing. I'm always willing to be very flexible. What's going on, and I never, because it goes back to if you have one goal and one goal only, one path, and something knocks you off the path, what are you going to do? And if you say, "Well, I'm not on the path. Oh, that's it. We're done." You're done. I'm just gonna pick another path, and it may be even better. Who knows? But it's I'm not going to suffer from grasping at that one vision, which really makes it really. I have so many projects going around on this house that if I don't finish the project, it's going to morph into something else. I know it, and it's okay. It's okay. It changes. You just don't grasp at one thing.
yeah, and that's something where I've I've tried to pull more from some of the Buddhist readings that I've read, is that a lot of things do have a life, whatever that may be, right? This
Mhm.
T-shirt, my cat, my car, and not to hold on to it for
Because
like
yeah, impermanence. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is
yeah,
designed specifically for that. It can only be that and that only. No, it changes. And there's nothing. We are all, and that's another thing is that we have to realize that every moment we are a different person. Every moment. From the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, you are different. You will never be the same person because you've learned stuff, you've had experiences, senses, something. But you're always going to be different. And trying to get back, thinking you're going to get back to what that other person is, you're just back to the grasping. And no, you can't grasp at something you were. Like a lot move back, well, those support groups are very big in my life right now, but they're all saying, I want to be back to that person before this happened. And I just have to say, that will never happen. That's off the table. Go on. And they have to stop grasping at that. You cannot grasp at anything trying to keep it the same because everything's different. Even your body, you new cells are replacing old cells constantly. So you're different. Everything is different. Nothing will be permanent. So if you want something to be permanent, that's going to cause you suffering because nothing at all is permanent. Even the earth changes constantly.
makes me think of an old quote. It's I had to look it up because I wanted to make sure that I didn't butcher this one, right?
The
No
butcher
man
day.
ever no man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the
Mhm.
same river, and he is not the same man.
Yes.
It goes back to, like, it made me think about one of your first analogies of that pebble or that rock that was in the river and just allowing things to flow by you.
Yeah.
I've I got a few things to think about so far already with this conversation. So my next question I have for you is, and I may butcher this word, and I wrote it, but I know I can pronounce it, but I don't know if I'm able to pronounce it under pressure. Mhm. How do you balance the power dynamics and the consent issues that are
Mm, yeah.
inside of BDSM with the principles of equanimity and the compassion inside of Buddhism?
Um, yeah, I think I touched a little bit on that. I'm like, no, that was a question for the later, so you should not.
You did touch a
But
little bit, but I felt like you
I'm
might have
like,
more
oh,
to
better wait
say.
for that question. That's later. Um, like I said, I don't see a lot of people say, here's the dominant, here's the sub, that's it. That's how it is. And mine is they're like yin yangs. They're they're part or different sides of the same coin. To me, you're equal in the relationship, but not equal. Because when you're in the relationship, you give a certain amount of your power to them. They can't take it. Like I said, you could give it and they can accept it. That's their part. So it is constantly going around. Um, how so I don't see one as lesser than the other. I see all people as being equals. And that's a big thing in Buddhism is that of equanimity. It's in like tons of our prayers constantly. And, I wish I had my books with me, but is equanimity is fairness, equality, of course, um, and things like that is you don't look down on people. You don't judge people and you appreciate them on equal levels. Like you won't say, well, this guy's the CEO of his business. Oh, he's great. While walking past the janitor, scrubbing the floor totally ignoring him. No, you don't. They're equal. They may have different jobs. It doesn't matter. They're doing if you have right work, then it's all to be appreciated. Like when I go to the stores, I make sure that when I go to the checkout and there's an employee there, I make eye contact. I thank them. I'm polite. Even though they're just maybe, they're a cashier. I would act the same way with like anybody. And I try to tell people, it's like, you got, to try to make other people happy, you have to make eye contact. Just don't flippantly say something, say thank you and looking away and, going your, no, you make eye contact to make sure they understand you appreciate them. So that's the same, in a BDSM, they are, even though the roles are different, they are equal. If somebody did not appreciate me or, something like that, I would never be in a relationship and I would never play with them. If they're not seeing me and accepting me as an equal, as an intelligent person, just as intelligent as them, probably. Um, so I don't, like I said, I don't see tears. There's a lot of people that see tears in BDSM. That's yours. It's not mine. I still see them, I'm equal to you. I have given my power. And as much as I think and contemplate, and if you abuse it, it's gone. I'm taken away. If you do something I don't approve of, we could talk, but it's I'm not sure how much I can do that.
I don't know. For me personally, I don't know if like part of this is about a power imbalance and it's not about equality. The thing that really stuck with me, and actually one of the audience members just said it, is the yin and yang. Or they also said like push and pull. and I think about like
Mhm.
black and white. Black and white aren't equal, right? They're actually quite polar opposites of each other, but they're complementary, right? Yin and yang,
Mhm.
right? They're complementary. And I was listening um to Be Better podcast earlier today, and they were just talking about how, masculinity will feed femininity and femininity would feed masculinity. And it's a cycle, right? Um and I think that a lot of times, I mean, for me in my personal experience, I feel the most dominant when I have the most submissive person with me, right? Because they're feeding that dominance, not because I have to force them to kneel, because they ask me to kneel. They want to be submissive.
Mhm.
And, um, and I don't necessarily think it's equal. I think we as humans, they're like on a human level, yes, we all should be equals. And even then I don't really believe in equals because I think some people work harder and we don't want to go into all of that. I don't want to get canceled, right? But I um I like the dualities that we see inside of life. And I find a lot of value in seeing the dualities between and dominance and submission. And one and like I said, just to kind of cap off my thought is they feed each other. Just like yin and yang. And in all good, there's bad, and in all bad, there's good. Right.
Okay,
And
now, if you take the good and bad, they are two separates, right? Like yin and yang and black and white. Without bad, there will be no good. And if you take away the very bad, you still just shift it around and it's still going to be bad because you can't have good without the bad. Because otherwise it's all good. It is you can't then define good is it's basically it's not bad. Um and I understand how you say it's like no, they want to do it, but that's I very much agree with that. But I also say you can't force it. They have to want to do it. And that's what I'm saying. I have to want to do this and be in a relationship and be submissive to somebody. And that's why and they have to be willing. That is the other thing is they have to be willing to accept it.
yeah,
It goes around. Yes, I can't force you to dominate me and you can't force me to submit to you. So the power is like to say that the people are equal. The power in the relationship may be unequal, but the people are equal themselves. And you can't have, um, I said, you can't have all good, you need one side to create the other side. And it's a perspective type thing. And it's back to labels and all this other stuff.
well, I don't really think that you can even compare a dom and a submissive because like the metrics are different. Like, what would make a and maybe I'm really just off in left field on this one, but it would be like the comparison of what makes a good sports player, and I'm not into sports, but like what makes a good sports player versus what makes a good coach. There's a little bit of a difference there, a massive difference, right? And is a good coach a good sports player? Probably not. I don't know. Maybe there is some more overlay there. But what I'm saying is like now if we get away
Mm.
from dominance and submission, it's even easier. Like what makes a good top? Like these are measurable skills, right? What makes a good bottom? There's still measurable skills that makes a good bottom. They're not in the same ballpark, right?
But it goes back with good and bad.
Yeah.
They complement each other. They fit
But they're
like a
not
puzzle.
comparable. Exactly. They complement each other, but they're not comparable, so they can't be equal.
Um, I think we're using apples and oranges here
Probably.
because, yeah, I'm like this. And a lot of times, like I do a lot of is like I'm looking at something, I'm like, I'm trying to explain it this way. And then somebody explains it, and I'm like, we're saying the same thing in different ways, but we don't see it because we're only seeing how our perspective. Um, I see them as equal because they're parts of a relationship, and they fit together like a puzzle. And the puzzle pieces, I'd say, are equal, even though they fit together differently. But they aren't. Yeah, they're
It
just
makes me
puzzle
think of
pieces.
this funny meme was on social media, and it was like, if dominants didn't have submissives, we'd just be running around chasing our cats, threatening to spank them. And I'm like, I haven't seen my cat in 2 days. Like,
Yeah, because your cat saw that meme and left at the door.
it's funny.
But I don't see. I still see them as equal parts, but the power is unequal. Parts of it, they're equal. They come to it equal, but they can. Parts of their equality is unequal,
Makes sense.
and it depends. Like it's when you're playing, maybe it is unequal, but when you're not playing, is it always unequal?
Depends on what's negotiated for, right?
That's exactly. And you may say, I want you to do this. And then you both have to sign it. You negotiate. You
Yeah.
both have to agree to this. And at any time, to me, a person can take that away also. So it's like, no, we need to talk again. But that's why I said you're more of what I would claim as a master. I'm more submissive because I would never go that far. I don't want to be 24/7. People have tried that on me. No, I had one guy, and I was so over the moon over this guy. Oh my god! And he basically said that fine, he'd accept me into his household, but it means that he gets my paycheck. My kids are not welcome at his house, and I have to get rid of all my stuff, and that's it. And I'm like, no, not happening. So he was all, to him, it was all about him. And that's not what I was looking for. It was tough, but so that's why I look down. He was looking more for a slave. I'm a sub, not gonna happen.
Yeah. At least you figured it out sooner than later, right?
Oh, my life would have been so wrecked if I'd moved up there. Oh my God.
Oh.
So wrecked. I'm so happy now.
And we've touched on this a little bit, but let's maybe dive into it a little bit more. Um, so my question is, how can BDSM be a form of meditation or spiritual practice for some people?
I think it goes back into when you've seen that part because meditation here's my thing. I had to actually stop it and listen. Meditating benefits. It lowers blood pressure. It boosts your immune system, helps with anxiety, helps with depression, and it also can rewire and reset your brain.
Plasticity.
And you become you have better self awareness, and of course, the decrease in depression and stress. And that's why I started thinking, it's like, well, maybe I need to revisit the meditation. But to me, in a scene, what's subspace? Is that a form of deep meditation? that you are pushed into through playing in the scene, because it's, they're basically out of it, and it's, I view that like is sort of like how you get when you meditate. You could get into a very deep trance, and it resets the mind, and it can help with all those things, and that's probably a reason why people love it so much, because you have less depression, less stress, more awareness, and you feel better because, maybe it boosts your immune system. Is it 100% that way? I don't know. It's just something I started thinking about with, why I play and how it is similar to other things. That explain it?
Yeah. No. I mean, I think that's like been kind of the basis of some of this conversations is like, we can attach a lot of words to it. Meditation,
Yeah.
transcendence, spirituality. Um, I mean, like to me, it's all about the same thing for me, right? And my way of defining a lot of that in the most concise way would be loss of self, I think.
While sitting in.
With transcendence, right? To reach that meditation state, right? Spirituality. I think it's a lot of it is about losing yourself and either dissolving into something else or focusing on something larger than yourself. But at the end of the day, it's something about loss of self.
Is it loss of self or more awareness? Yeah, I'm not sure if I would say it's loss of self. And it could be just the labels that we put to the words.
Yeah, absolutely. I but I mean like when I'm thinking about transcendence or meditation, like well, let's just go back to meditation because that's the word that's been mainly used in this conversation. And like I'm with you. I've tried meditating. I've done the research on how benefits, all the good stuff. I
Mhm.
can't do it. I got ADD. I just
Oh,
can't
yeah.
do it. And I've tried. I've done all the little tricks. I've read on breathing and all the things. But there's moments for me where I find that meditative state, and it's usually specifically for me for rope, right? And the reason why I kind of feel like it's a loss of self, and maybe that's not the best way. Like I guess like I don't know what it's like to meditate because I've never successfully meditated, so I can't speculate what those feelings are. The only thing that I can think to compare it to is what I feel or my headspace when I tie somebody. And in that moment, the world dissolves. Nothing matters except that
Mhm.
single moment. I don't matter anymore. That person matters. Their life matters. Making sure they get back to the ground matters, right? My tax return that's late, it doesn't matter because my accountant knows he's going to file an extension because he has for the last 9 years. So, it just doesn't matter right now. Or, if I left the coffee pot on or whatever, or the
So
stress of the
to you explaining it like that, I say that is a meditative state for you. It's meditation is not thinking. That's what they're saying. Oh no, no, it is not following the thoughts into rabbit holes. So how Master Joe was explaining it one time, he's like, and this took me forever. Oh, he would tell me something, and then I have to figure out what the fuck he just said. So it was, when you're doing laundry, just do laundry. So you're not thinking, you're not going down rabbit holes, you're just you're in the now, and that's it. You're just doing laundry. You're not thinking about anything else. You're not making lists or anything else. So figured that one out. Okay, just do it. And that's kind of like the beginning of a meditation. Is the other one that took me forever is go out and kick a log. Every time I got mad, go kick logs. And there's that was always fun. It took me months to figure that one out. And that was, if I can remember, was no matter how mad you get and you kick it around and everything, the log's still a log and your foot still hurts.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And no matter what you do, the log's still a log.
Yep.
It's
And the
that's it.
madder you get, the more your foot hurts.
Yeah.
And
So
then you
just
get
calm the
mad
mind
because your
down.
foot hurts. So it's just,
Yeah, it's an
huh.
evil circle. So I'm like, yeah, it took a lot of logs.
See, I
Kicking those
had
around the house.
a not as, wholesome thing, and I think it kind of combines a few of your principles or practices, is if you have one foot in the past and then one foot in the present or one foot in the future, all you're doing is pissing on today, and
Yeah,
you're not focusing on the moment. And this is
yeah, it's
something where I find myself getting really bad at it, where I'm like waiting to the next thing. I can't. I want to watch this movie so bad. 15 minutes into it, I can't wait till it's over because then I got the next thing that I'm already
yeah.
thinking about,
Oh my God,
right?
yes. Oh, I do that. I'm like,
And we
why are you doing? You're not in the now. You're not in the
Mhm.
present, and you're wasting it. You're not experiencing. You were so excited about this, and you just blew it. You wasted it. You didn't. You were not in the now, and that's your problem.
the one that really kind of there's a story, and I'm not gonna reveal any names, obviously, but I was with someone and we were having this great time, and they're like, "Wouldn't it be cool to come here on X date?" And I'm like, "We're here right now." But they were so
Mhm.
focused on like coming to the place that they're at another time, right? And it's like, why do yeah, it would be fun that time too, but it's fun right now. And
Yeah.
another big quote that I'll kind of get off my soapbox here, that's been really sticking with me for the last few months, and I feel that should be put into this conversation, is you've already achieved what you said would make you happy. So going back to that, what's that?
I got to think on that one for a while.
Yeah, it took me a second to chew on it because, like, when I heard it, I was like, okay, I don't know. I don't necessarily look at my achievements as a one to one to like happiness necessarily, but I do see where experience and novelty does add to happiness. Um, Nonetheless, like for me specifically, it was like the John Muir Trail. When I hiked that, wanted to do it for years and years and years and years, and it was going to be like my biggest goal and hiking goals, and now it's just like a blip on the radar, and now I'm back to like the normal hiking schedules again, and it's just like what's the next hiking trip that's going to make me happy, because I've already done hundreds of hiking trips that I said would make me happy. Like this was like the best hiking trip ever, and then
Or could it be referencing to the grasping? You're like
mm,
constantly thinking you need more when you're
mm,
not in the now and not appreciating things like, and I tell people a lot, the people that are so depressed, I'm like, you need to find something that will make you smile and be happy every single day, every day. And they're like, why? It's like, because if you stop looking for it, your mind will stop. If you stop seeing it, your mind will stop looking for it.
mm.
So I was like, go outside, close your eyes, feel the sun on your face, smile. Look at something and actually laugh, uh, that is being in the now and being happy. And I try to do that countless times a day. I could go outside and look at the sunset and just stand there. And then usually I run in and get my camera so I could save it for later. But it's I enjoy I enjoy sunsets. The breeze on my face, the dogs playing. That's staying in the now is really important to me. How that gets with the BDSM is that you're not looking for the next scene. You're enjoying the relationship you have now in whatever form it's taking between the people in the relationship. It's like you don't keep on grasping at the next scene or something, and instead just kind of enjoy the people. You don't have to be scening all the time. And you just are running.
Yeah, no, this has been, I mean, for me, very interesting conversation. I'm definitely have a lot of reflection on it because I've already known some of my personal suffering has come from some of the things we've talked about in this conversation,
Mhm,
right? And like I've butt-headedly joked that most people that are in a relationship are either, running away from loneliness or they're running to companionship, right?
mhm.
Um, and we won't dive down that rabbit hole, right? But it I guess I didn't know enough about Buddhism to know that like the three types of suffering. So I have a feeling I'm gonna know a lot more about the three types of suffering.
Oh yeah, they oh my god, they love talking about suffering. They can have lectures all, just study it for years and years and years. And then they go into your all your senses don't exist because they are brought into the mind, and so the mind is the one that deciphers it. So did they really exist in the beginning? It's oh yeah. Sometimes I'm looking reading this stuff, I'm like, okay, we need to visit this. I'm not
Fair,
so sure about this one.
fair. All right. So the last question we got for the night is what are the benefits and the challenges of using BDSM as a way of transcending boundaries and achieving altered states of consciousness? So kind of some of what we've already talked about, but I guess more getting a little to the point on specifics.
Um, God, I haven't played. We won't even tell how long it's been since I played. Um, I think it for me when I was really playing. Oh, my best scene. Oh my God, I was the. I'm short, so they put me in a room and they brought in a stump. Uh, they cut stuff. They brought it in and put it in the middle of the room so I could stand on it. And there's 9 people with whips, and they went in teams of 3 at a time and went with signal whips and went around. So that was a little bit of transcending.
I imagine.
Oh yeah, and it was I just it to this day I always laugh when I see a stump. I'm like, yeah, I'm short because they didn't want to bend down. That's why they're dominant,
No,
so
that
they
makes
shouldn't have
sense.
to bend down to hit me
Well,
where they
yeah,
wanted.
we don't want to work too hard. Do you know
Yeah,
how
they don't
hard
want
it
to
is?
too
I mean, I
hard.
don't
So
want to
they
get
really
carpal
stump.
tunnel. I mean,
Oh my
my
God,
poor
no, they already did
wrist.
that. Yeah, so that was kind of funny. It's like, but that was like my biggest one of my biggest transcending. But it's got a lot of times when I played, especially with the whips, is I got to the point where this may sound strange, but I felt like I was in a telephone booth. Things were happening around me, but I did not feel them whatsoever. I felt like I was in a bubble or whatever you want to call it, but that was like a transcending experience for me, that I didn't feel any of that was going on. Then there was times when I could stop breathing. That scared the shit out of them. But the problem is, after the scene, this lasted, and I neglected to tell anybody about that. But I couldn't for hours. I could not feel temperature. I could not. I didn't know if I was hot or cold. Didn't know. Didn't know if hungry or thirsty. Didn't know, and all this stuff. So it was a lot of those feelings and the ability to feel my body after a really hard scene were gone. I could not process a lot of it. Oh, and I couldn't talk. That was really, that was something really unusual. But I just literally did not want to talk at all after some of these scenes that were so um, huge for me. There's the emotions, the feelings were just massive.
Well, I'm not a medical professional by no means, but I would speculate that like some of that is just your body's coping mechanisms to the intense physical, emotional, and mental
Mhm. But isn't that
strain.
what we do?
Well,
That's what
yeah,
we
absolutely.
do when we scene, is we're trying to get to over basically overcharge the brain to stop, to process pain and everything else a little differently with the all the adrenaline and all the pheromones and all the not the pheromones, the hormones and everything else going through you, that because we enjoy it. It's a good feeling. And if you go a little bit above that, that's when you probably, that happened to me only a couple times, and I eventually told him what was going on. One guy thought it was hysterical. I didn't know if I was hot or cold. He thought that was the funniest thing in the world. He didn't care, but I'm like, oh, that's great. Um, but we, our purpose in playing is to try to push the brain to a different path, to feel things differently, and to, because we start slow and then you build up, so you don't feel it. It feels the same, even though you're going up. So I think that's part of why we play, and how it transcends, because we can handle more by the way we play, because you start low and you keep on building up on it. That if we started high, you couldn't do that. So you are trying to transcend the mind and push it a little bit, and it's fun. We enjoy doing it.
And cold caning isn't? Cold caning's not fun?
Cold paint's fun sometimes, but it goes back to, when you're Buddhist, it's a little bit different, because until you get to the really high parts where they pushed me, and I wasn't really all that into Buddhism at the time. I had just started learning a lot about it when I was doing that heavy play, and you're so into the now all the time. And I don't know if it's easier or harder to push somebody into altered states like that if they stay in the now.
Hmm. I can see like
And
how
especially with ADD, oh my God, ADD, with you got the tracks going on in your brain. Yeah,
yeah.
you try shutting down like three tracks in somebody's brain.
Well, and that's the thing is like I've played in many ways, um, and the only place that I really find that meditative state for me, that transcendence, is with rope, and it's specifically like rope suspension, and that's probably why I have dove as far down in rope as I have, because I've tried a lot of things, like like I said, breathing and meditation. And my mom is very woo and like my whole life and all the things and sounding bowls next to, the coffee pot type of
Oh,
stuff,
yeah.
right? Like,
I got a new one, yes. Oh my god, yes. But it
and
yeah,
I've never, ever in the 39 years of my life have ever experienced what I feel with rope. Like, I get something when I get a top space, like, with sadism, but it's different. It's much different. There's
yeah.
something with rope for me that is very meditative. I'd say, like, the sadism starts to lean into cathartic because I like to think that, like, my sadism, I wanna share my pain with somebody else. That doesn't sound too meditative.
But I think it's meditative because you have a set you're back to what happened to the kidnapping. You have a set way of doing it, and that gives you the meditative quality to it. You have a regime, a certain way of doing it. If something happened, I'm not, but it's we all find different ways of expressing it in ourselves. You like rope, and I enjoy rope. I love whips. Yeah. And the funny thing is, I can probably throw whips better than most of the doms I'm around, and they all think I'm a top, and I'm like, no, no, not happening. I also make my own whips, so that's kind of fun.
Oh, might have to
Yeah,
talk. Maybe I'll have to get an alley special then.
I know. I got to show you. I got the first one I made was this cute little Mennonite kid. He must have been like maybe 21, and I can't tell him why we're making this because he's a kid. He's just a
Huh.
kid. He's a baby. So I couldn't tell him I wanted a signal whip. We ended up making a 10-foot snake whip.
Oh,
And
wow.
his uncles, they all live in the house together. The uncle, the mother, his family, and in the basement, we went and he has his what is he? No, he wasn't Midwest whips. I have to remember what his was. I also went with Midwest whips, and he had taught me. But I mean, he just and there's all these Mennonite sayings on strips of paper everywhere. I'm like, no, we're not going there. No, no.
Yeah.
And I still have it. That whip is great, and everybody's like, and I love it when the DOMs come out. Well, let's see who's got the loudest crack, and I'm like, before we start, let me just get baby out, and we'll just end this really, really quick. The tractor, yeah, I was like, no, you can't play anymore. No, that we're done because it's loud. Oh, and by the way, over at Camp Crucible, they have a whole department that kidnaps people. A whole yes, and people send in little things of exactly how they want to be kidnapped. And over the week, they
I have
kidnap
been
people.
meaning to get to Camp Crucible because it's actually not terribly far from me, if I'm not mistaken. It's up in Maryland, correct? Yeah, which I think is 6, 8, 10 hours or something drive time for me.
You got to go. It's full this year, but go next year because it is absolutely. And they have a whole bunch of rope people. Rope's
Yeah.
big with these people now, and
Rope's big
they
everywhere.
also yeah they also sort of buried somebody alive. It wasn't
Mm,
very long though. They do some
well,
strange. They light people on fire and throw them in the water in the pool.
mm, fun.
Yes, but it's where are we? People manifest the things they like the people with the fire. They love doing that. You like rope, I like whips, and it's all how you connect with somebody. 'Cause, somebody that doesn't like whips, I don't know if I could get as close a relationship with
Yeah.
because the I can be in a scene and being hit by a whip, and I can immediately in the pain's in me, and I just label it and let it go. And I don't focus on it. I don't. struggle against it. It just is. If that makes any sense. And it gets you into like a meditative. I think a lot of play is meditative if you, to some extent.
Uh, yeah, I definitely think that trying to get out to Camp Crucible might be something that might be a goal for next year. I've
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
definitely.
pulled back a lot. Honestly, something I've kind of come to the conclusion is that I'm not necessarily part of the BDSM community. I'm a BDSM practitioner. And
Yeah,
I have,
because you're about the same way with me because I am in the scene, but not in the scene. I don't
yeah,
scene. I do. I'm like. I guess I'm support.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, I
hero
don't
support.
I've never was big on playing publicly unless if it was like with my person and it was like, or a performance or something like that. Like I didn't go to the dungeons to play with people or anything like that. Um, Nonetheless, yeah, words they're important, right? But yeah, no,
Yeah, I
maybe
enjoy
I'll
tape a lot because yeah, I'm on staff there, so that helps. But it's people make their no two people have the same way of expressing BDSM. Everybody has their own path, and no two paths are the same. You can't say this is the way to do it or that's the way to do it, unless it's a knot, of course. Yeah, but is I like what I know I like, and that's why you have to do a lot of contemplation and thought to figure out what you want and what you're looking for, and if it's to go into these transcending things, study it. If it's to do something else, learn and see if something you like. I like I said, my service, all the service I do, I adore it. I've been doing it all my life. But I also know that nothing is permanent. And I have to accept that, which is a lot of times very hard. It's like when I buy a light bulb, it should last forever. I bought the light bulb. There's nothing wrong with it. Why has it gone bad? And I just have to realize, yes, it's impermanent. You're gonna have to change it eventually. But there's a lot of things in Buddhism affect my BDSM. Um, but one is there are two different circles that intersect a little bit. And I understand how my thoughts will define who I play with because I consider not that many people that would click to what I enjoy doing and how I think. Because a lot of DOMs don't appreciate or don't want somebody that would question them. And I'm sorry, I question everything. Believe me, my Buddhist people, it pisses them off too. Because I will question everything. I have something now that's going on that I'm like, oh, should I just drop it? No, 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 we're not going to drop this. We're going to question this and
it's
ask
good to
why.
question though. That's the only way you're ever gonna get answers.
Yes, but in BDSM, the subs are taught that no, in their relationship, they're never to question.
I would say that's wrong.
That's, yeah, it is. Well, they're like, no, this is his way or the highway. You don't question this. This is how it is. And that's
I
how it's kind of framed
I think
as
it's
I see
framed
it.
that way, but not by like not by many of the people I associate with, because it's like I need information, and the only way I'm going to get information is by me asking questions or you asking questions. So for me, as
Mhm,
someone that self-identifies as a master, like I have to encourage my person to use their voice, because if like a perfect thing is I want you to go wash my car, slave. What does that mean? Are they washing the inside? Are they washing the outside? Are they washing under the hood? Are they vacuuming it? Are they waxing it? Are they drying it? What are the details? Because
mhm.
in my head, if I tell them to wash, I hand wash my car, my truck. I'm lucky if I spray it down with a hose, right?
I was about to say, you don't want to see my car.
But there's a difference. If I told you to wash my car versus how I wash my truck, they're very different. And unless if I encourage someone to ask questions, they're gonna fail. And the thing is I will hold them accountable. So a lot of
Yeah.
times I will be like, you know, person A, go wash my car. Are you clear? Are we clear? Yes, I'm clear.
Yeah.
Okay. There, you just said that you knew exactly what I meant.
Mhm,
Now go wash my car. And it better be exactly what I meant in my head, and you better hope that 2 hours later, my head didn't change whatever that meant, right?
mhm.
Because of whatever else happened, and this is where I think it goes back to just, like, a lot of this conversation of, like, that flow of back and forth, and I would I might be bold here, but I would say that most dominants or masters are willing to be questioned respectfully.
Yes, it depends on how you do it. I think a lot that they get affronted if somebody questions them. And with me, with the Buddhism, I question. Like I said, it's most religions say, "Listen to what I say," and that's it. There's no questioning. You accept that that's true and go on. I don't. Buddhism starts with doubt everything. Everything is
Buddhism
doubted.
seem Buddhism seems to be more of like a collective of practices, more so. Like, because and I like, your comparison, because like, religion and I'm not trying to, like, be sacrilegious or anything like that, just to be clear, but religion definitely seems to be more like, like, specific to, like, Christianity. You have the 10 commandments. It's very here is the do's and the don'ts, so to say. And just my outside view of Buddhism is it seems that it's a little bit more fluid, and it's not necessarily like there is only one way necessarily.
Oh, there's never. Oh my God, they've got 184,000 tenants. There's 184,000 teachings. 184,000. My God, these people. But they teach you, and even Buddha said, "Do not take my words as the truth. Take my words, go home, contemplate, think about this, try to put it into your life to see if it works. And what works, you keep. What doesn't work, don't keep." And that's it. Where a lot of them say, "No, this is how it is. This is what you're going to do, and there's no other path." And the good thing
Yeah.
is that Buddhism doesn't have a deity. We have no one to answer to but ourselves. So that kind of makes it easy. And that's what I like, because I always got in trouble with the other religions I was in. It's like, even as a child, one of my first memories is at Sunday school, and they said something, and I'm like, back with, but what if? And they're like, all they did was pat me on the head. Oh, what a nice, precocious child. Never answered me,
Yeah.
because you're not to question. But we question everything. And contemplation's huge. And I think meditation, I think your definition of meditation is a little bit off because I think you're trying not to think.
Mm.
And that is literally impossible for the mind.
Yeah.
It is impossible. You cannot go more than, I think, 7 seconds without a thought in your brain.
Mm.
If you try to think of nothing, or no, if you try to think of one item, a key, that's what we did in high school. He said, just key. That's all you're to keep in your mind is this key. He said, now just how long? And nobody made it past 7 seconds with another mind, something going through their mind. So you can't stop the thoughts. Meditation is not grasping or running from the thought.
Mm.
You don't expand on the thought. You just, see the thought, label it, pat it on the head, and let it go.
That makes
That's
sense.
meditation. So
Well,
you're saying you can't do it. You're probably doing it at some point, as long as you realize that it's not thinking,
yeah.
not
Well, and that's where,
grasping.
like I said, I think there's a lot that I gain a lot from doing these podcasts. I mean, I'll go ahead and just say it. Some of it's just selfishness because I want to. My coin phrase is I want to be the catalyst for conversation that I want to hear, and this was a conversation that I wanted to hear. So I I don't know if our viewers got anything out of it. I personally did. I know that I'll go back and
That's
I'll
all that
listen.
matters.
Huh?
That's all that matters. You got something out of it. We're
Well,
cool.
exactly, right? Let's just care about myself. But anyways, um, like to wrap up this discussion, I try to limit it to an hour and a half to 2 hours at most. We're right just over 2 hours. I want to be respectful of your time. Um, is there any closing thoughts or things you'd like to
Um,
share, or any shameless plugs? You mentioned Camp Crucible.
these random thoughts going through your brain. Um, be kind to yourself. That's the big thing in Buddhism. Also, is compassion, kindness, and that goes a long way to ending a lot of your suffering because compassion starts with yourself. So that's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of that doesn't have much to do with BDSM, but yeah, I got the last word. But it's I can say what I wanted. But that's even the Dalai Lama. They ask him what his main practice is, and it's kindness. Yeah. So that brings in compassion. That's helping people, and that's my like you can gradually bring in the Buddhism, the BDSM with the kindness and compassion is what fuels also my service sub side of me. So it works.
Well, I mean, and even on like my side of the slash, there definitely needs to be kindness and compassion, right? And this is
Oh
where
yeah,
like
I don't think anybody is of us would be with somebody that has no kindness or compassion. Yeah, because you have to care about the person, or what's happening to the person, or something.
I mean, you're
Yeah,
supposed to at least.
I think another reason why I stopped playing. Actually, it was the last time I played. I think was that religious scene, and I'm like, no, we're done.
Yeah, no,
We're
that's a
done.
bit much.
Yeah, it's
Well,
been I think 10 years.
wow.
Yeah,
Well,
I
you're
told you
due
you
for
don't
some
want to
fun.
know. It's been like 10 years since I played, and we won't even go into the S. Mm, mm. We stopped doing that. That's been 15 over 15 years. Yeah.
Just
Hmm.
means you're waiting for the right scene, the right
I know
time, the right
it got to the point where it's like, it's if it's not the right person for me, it's not good. So
uh, there's value there. There is.
yeah,
And I respect and I can appreciate the fact that like you Mm, I think the word I wanna say is tenacity. Have the tenacity to, like, stand by your values and your thoughts and your desires, and you're not gonna settle. And I think sometimes a
Mhm.
lot of times, at least me, um, I haven't have always been so strong-willed, and this is where, like, over the last year and a half, I've slowed down on roping because I started roping too many people, if that's a thing, but I didn't get it.
Is that possible?
I didn't get what I wanted out of it. Partly was
Mhm.
I can accept responsibility. Part of it was a lack of communication on my end on, like, what I was actually looking for, but I was looking for those transcendental moments, right? I was looking for that cathartic release or that meditative state, and when I'm tying someone that I just met, I'm not gonna get it.
Yeah, see that we think a lot about the same on that I cannot I'm like, I'm trusting this guy to tie me up totally immobile and I don't even really know his last name. I don't know anything
Yeah,
about him. I'm
yeah.
like, no, no.
Yep.
It's you need to know the person or something. But also is like you're saying that you want that meditative, you want that, and if you could see, you're back to your grasping. You're back to I want, and if you grasp at I want this thing to check off all these for the scene, you are going for the goal and not the now and the path. So if you don't live in the now, you're back to you're not because you're looking for that one thing. It's like you said for the vacation, you're looking for the next vacation because they want it just as good, but they're not staying in the now and having fun what they're doing now. Even though you may not get into that high thing. And that only happens a couple times. But it doesn't mean you can't enjoy what you're doing now.
That makes sense. Ugh,
But
alright,
it
I got
doesn't
a lot
mean
to
that
chew on.
you have to stop wanting that
Yeah.
big O in the sky. You may not always get it, but maybe not getting it all the time means that big one is really great.
Yeah, yeah. No, I see the value in scarcity as well.
Yes,
So,
and quality over quantity is
yeah.
I'm one to talk when I haven't played for a long time, but I just my trust is like Zippo, so I
I know.
just I like well if you're asking for a scene for somebody to throw a whip at your back, excuse me,
Yeah.
that's a shit ton.
Well, Allie, I greatly appreciate this conversation. Like I said, you spurred a bunch of thoughts in me. Um,
I'm sorry.
no, no, it was a good thing, really good thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the stream. If you wanna just hang on 1 second, we can go ahead and say goodbyes off air. But once
Okay,
again, Allie, I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
bye.